Welcome back, everybody. Great to have you on the program. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. Mark McGunegill has been an independent filmmaker and screenwriter for many years. His favorite genres have been science fiction and historical fiction, as well as historically factual dramatizations. Mark's first book, Star Testament, was published in 2014, receiving excellent reviews. He's also been an expert scale model maker for film and display. His model on the Revolutionary War submarine turtle, which was used in his 1988 documentary The Eagle and the Turtle, has been on display in the Smithsonian Museum of American History for several years. Mark has also worked for several years in the construction industry as a superintendent and independent contractor. Currently living in Southern California with his wife Susan, their teenage daughter. His new book is called The Stranger Returns. Mark McGunegill with us on This Week in America. Mark, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Great to be here, Rick.
Excellent job on the second book, The Stranger Returns. I mentioned the first, Star Testament, which has excellent reviews. That's still available. We're focusing on The Stranger Returns on the program today. Books available at bookventure.com/bookstore. Of course, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly. Tell me a little bit about The Stranger Returns. You've got several aspects of this. It really makes it different than other books we've read out there, some Christian fiction dealing with the end times. You've got a couple of different aspects to the book, The Stranger Returns. Let's talk about that, and then we'll get into the story plot.
Sure. This book, The Stranger Returns, is I guess you would categorize it as Christian fiction. It has a science fiction element to it, but I tried to make it biblically based Christian fiction, and it deals with the end times, the period of the Great Tribulation, as in the Bible and in the book of Revelation, and some of the distinctions that are kind of different with my book with other recent Christian fiction, such as the Left Behind series and things like that, is the fact that this book approaches the tribulation period and the end times from a post-tribulation rapture point of view. Which is to say that the rapture of the church takes place at the end of the tribulation, and that Christians living at that time will have to go through the tribulation, endure the tribulation, and will not be delivered from it until Jesus Christ returns again to earth at the end of that tribulation period.
We're talking about the new book, The Stranger Returns. Mark McGunegill is the author and our guest on the program. Where did your interest in this topic come from?
Well, been a Christian for many years and interested in prophecy, and also always been interested in science fiction. So kind of combining the two a little bit. But I tried to make this book extremely biblically accurate, and while still, maintaining a kind of compelling story, fictional story. So.
How long did it take you to write the book? You mentioned that the research you did, and these are areas that you can get some conflict from time to time, different interpretations. How long did it take you to write the book where you really felt comfortable with what I'm portraying, I really believe to be accurate?
It took me about a little over a year to write the book and to finish the final edit.
The book is called The Stranger Returns. It's available at bookventure.com, at their bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. In talking about the book, it's really a powerful book. It's really a story well written. Major Joshua McNeal, we follow during the book, in the book, The Stranger Returns. Talk about him and this government experiment that he's involved in.
Yes. The main character, the central character of the book, is Major Joshua McNeal, who is an Air Force test pilot, and he lost his wife and daughter in an accident, and because of that, he was just wanting to kind of escape the present day and everything around him. He didn't feel like he belonged in this world as it was. He wanted to find a better world, basically, and this experiment came up, and he volunteered for it. It was a time experiment based on Einstein's theory of special relativity, which indicates that speed affects time. And so he is launched into space and basically orbits our solar system at extreme high speeds, returning to Earth after 9 months, but he's actually returning to Earth where 62 years have passed, and we're now at the end of this century, and he finds that instead of a better, more hopeful world, he's found an extreme police state that he's come back to, and he doesn't fit into it. He's not registered with the state. He finds himself. He also discovers that his country, the United States, is no longer an independent nation. So he basically, through a series of kind of adventures, he finds himself fleeing from the government officials, and finds himself out in the wilderness where there are groups of Christian separatists living outside of the system. They're living completely autonomously because they won't go along with the present system. These are not all Christians. These are some Christians that have chosen to live separately.
And he really likes that lifestyle, doesn't he? I mean, he loves the lifestyle. And
he's kind of well equipped for it.
Yes.
But yes, he prefers nonconformity in that sense. Yes.
The book is called The Stranger Returns. Mark McGunegill is the author. That's McGunegill. The book's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookventure.com bookstore. And go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly to information on the book. They're out in the wilderness. He decides that he becomes actually one of them. And they're persecuted. Talk about that, because life is not like, we're out in the woods and we're living by ourselves and everything is fine. They actually find themselves persecuted. Talk about how that happens.
Yes, because in the story, these are certain groups around the country and around the world, Christians, mainly Christians, who have chosen to form their own communities and actually defend themselves, because whereas most of the citizens in the regular society are not armed, most of these Christians are heavily armed. And that's to defend themselves, and that's why for several years prior they've been kind of left alone, because they want to be left alone, and the government knows that they've been heavily armed. However, they've found that their numbers have dwindled recently, and their supplies are kind of running out. They have they have nothing from they have no power. They have no water from
Right.
the municipal water. They have none of the services, none of the access to goods and services that the world has. So they have to basically fend for themselves. And he escapes from some officers that are hunting him down, and he lands in this small community up in the mountains, just up north of the L.A. area, and this is a community of Christians living up in the mountains, and he experiences the hardships that they have to endure every day just to survive. They have to hunt, they have to fish, they have to find their food, they have to make campfires, they have to live kind of primitively, because they don't have the services, and they don't have the facilities that normal society would have.
Yeah, and they have to take bolder steps to survive. This is the book, The Stranger Returns. Yeah, they really do. It's a matter of survival, isn't it? And they'll do whatever needs to be done.
It is.
To survive.
Not only do they have to brave the elements, but they do come under attack then, because eventually a leader comes into the world, puts himself as a leader of this world government that basically is saying, okay, we're not going to allow these people their autonomy anymore. He wants everybody in the fold, so to speak. So he goes after them. He goes after them one by one, and eventually, he either conquers them, or he causes them to just go off into hiding even further. There's fighting, and there's conflict, and another thing that distinguishes my book from a lot of other Christian fiction novels about the end times is the fact that these Christians, many of them, are willing and able to fight to defend themselves and their families, and it's kind of a one-sided fight. It's not even a fair fight. However, they do fight. They fight when they have to. They fight when they're attacked, and the rest of the time they're in hiding, and in that process they're also trying to survive on whatever they can find. So it's a very hard existence.
Do you see this as looking into the future? We're talking about the end times and tribulation and rapture. Is this sort of your vision of what could possibly happen? You mentioned 61 years, I think, in the future. Do you see this as something that could happen in the future?
Yes, I see it. As far as the timing is concerned, nobody really knows.
Right.
There are certain things that I believe, have to take place and be established before these things can happen. I mean, I don't think that it's going to happen tomorrow or next year, because there has to be certain things set in place. However, these things will happen as the Bible, describes them, and I try to just kind of put a personal flesh and bones type experience on it from a particular character's point of view, and walk through it from his point of view. The book doesn't try to embrace what's happening around the whole world and take into account everything that's going on politically and everything else. It follows the character. It follows this character through this time and his struggles and the people around him, and so it's very localized as far as that's concerned.
And the book is receiving excellent reviews. It really is an excellent story. It's The Stranger Returns. When someone reads it and they're, and not necessarily appropriate word, entertained, but they read the story and they are entertained by the story. It's a very good story. It's got all the elements that we want when we're reading fiction. But what do you want us to take away from the book when we finish? Besides the fact that we've read that, we've enjoyed the story, and we're going, boy, this has got different layers to it. It's got different elements to it. This really was a thought-provoking story. What do you want us to take away from the book, The Stranger Returns?
Well, if there's any one thing that I hope that the reader will take away from the book is that there is only hope and salvation one way, and that's through Jesus Christ. And that's what I hope they'll find in that book.
The book is really well written. It's called The Stranger Returns. Mark McGunegill, our guest in the program. I mentioned that his first book was Star Treatment, and this was a book that sort of reversed the typical roles of aliens and Earth people that we read in many science fiction pictures. You really do a nice job of sort of twisting that around, that sort of a different take on that in the Star Testament. How much fun was that to write and to get the response that you've gotten for that? Because this is like sort of a whole new take on this genre of books.
Yeah, Star Testament was Star Testament was completely different than this book.
Yes,
it takes place on a different on another planet, and in this situation, we so often we read and have seen films about highly advanced aliens coming to Earth with their technology and so forth, and in this situation, we the Earth explorers are the highly advanced aliens coming to this planet, this technologically primitive planet, and kind of overwhelming them with our technology. So it's a little bit different as far as that's concerned, but and there is a force, a planetary force, a mysterious power on this planet that is something that the Earth explorers are trying to figure out, and it seems to be intimately involved in a major conflict that these two warring kingdoms are having. So.
Well, it's excellently reviewed, and you'll see why when you read it. That's called Star Treatment. The new book, Mark's new book, is called The Stranger Returns. Mentioned as a background in filmmaking and screenwriting, you do know how to tell a good story. That gets us hooked, and then the message is in that story, but the story is laid out so well. You really did a nice job in laying out the story and making it flow. I mean, it's one of those where you don't want to put the book down until you've gone through at least another couple of chapters to see what's going to happen here. So it's just an excellent book. It's called The Stranger Returns. Mark McGunegill, our guest on This Week in America. A minute or so left in the program. What kind of response are you getting from people that have read the book?
Well, like you said, I'm getting a very good response. I've had people tell me, it's hard to put down, and it's really compelling. Even people that are not into science fiction with both of my books. Even people that are not into science fiction really like the books because They're more adventure stories. They're not so much into science fiction that they lose a reader who's just looking for a
Yes.
human story, and that's what I try to do.
I read one of the reviews and said, can't wait to see this on the big screen. Both of these would certainly make excellent movies. The new book, of course, The Stranger Returns. Any discussion of doing something with that?
Well, I'm always open to that. Certainly.
That it would make an excellent movie. It makes an excellent book. It's called The Stranger Returns. Mark McGunegill has been our guest on This Week in America. The book's available at bookventure.com bookstore, the bookstore at Bookventure. Just go to bookventure.com/bookstore. It's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you get a link on directly to information on the book. The Stranger Returns, the new book. Mark's first book is called Star Testament. Mark McGunegill, our guest on the program. Mark, a pleasure to have you on the program. Excellent job on The Stranger Returns. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you, Rick.
My pleasure. You're listening to This Week in America. Information on Mark and all of our guests at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Stay tuned. The program continues right after these important messages.